One of the most insidious and dangerous elements of all of this is the omnipresence of the mob. Basically, we've been seeing, basically dueling banjos, almost like dueling mobs over the past year, especially during this election. One of the things about mobs, it's what sociologists like to refer to as the Kitty Genovese principle, in the sense that basically, I'm not going to explain that whole thing here and now. If you're familiar with that story, then you already know exactly what I'm talking about, but in short, what it comes down to is the diffusion of responsibility. You put enough people into a mob and people start to forget that they themselves are individuals. They look at themselves just as part of the mob that they're joining. And once they do that, then a lot of times people will start to think that they can do almost anything that they want to. Or at the very least, do all sorts of things that they normally would not do. So really, how does all of this get solved? Well, unfortunately, it really doesn't just get solved with people calling for an end to the violence. This thing isn't going to get solved until enough individual people break away from that mob and establish themselves as individuals and say, we're not going to do this anymore. And not only to do that themselves, but to also say to the people that are above them and fueling this thing, to actually say to them that if you continue to fuel this, we are going to penalize you. And in politics, you actually do that in a very simple way. You penalize people for stirring up the mob by taking your vote away from them. In the States, they need to start doing some things, like they need to start primarying some sitting members, both of the House and of the Senate. AOC, Nancy Pelosi, Adam Schiff. There's a great place to start. If you really want the violence to end, then you either demand that they stop what they're doing in terms of fueling it, or you vote for somebody else in the primary and get them out of there and get in somebody who will do that. And obviously the simplest way to do it is to just not participate in that themselves. It's not simple. Okay, let's not pretend that it's simple. Let's not Jiminy Cricket this thing and pretend that it's a very simple and intuitive thing. It's not simple, it's complicated. But even though it is not simple, it is also not as complicated. It may be complicated, but it's not as complicated as we're giving it credit for. It may not be easy, but it's not impossible. In one way or the other, it has to start. And it has to start with individual people. No one person watching this or listening to this can do it on their own. But one person can start, and enough people coming together can get this thing fixed, can get this thing done. And it's time to do it. Because if we don't do it now, it's going to be an awful lot worse by the time that it does get done. And if you wait too long, I absolutely guarantee you that it will happen. It will most likely happen in a way that you don't like. It will most likely happen in a way that you don't like, and it will most likely happen in a way that I don't like. You can feel free to think of it as an anti-mob, if you will. A large collection of individuals who are coming together to work through common values, with ration in mind, which in all honesty is something that I know that these people, that both sides of this are telling us that they are, but really neither of them are. In order to put a stop to this, somebody is going to have to actually become that thing. But make no mistake about this. This can either get better or it can get worse. And that's a choice that an awful lot of people are going to have to make together. I've actually just realized that make no mistake about it is almost becoming like another catchphrase of this podcast. I'm almost thinking that maybe I should stick that on a t-shirt and we'll see how it goes. And so, we'll just see how it goes. The next week, we will see how it goes. Hopefully this time next week, I won't be back here talking about the same story all over again. I mean, in all honesty, I could talk about this for literally weeks and weeks and weeks. Just this one subject. I could spend months on this, but I don't want to. So with any luck, the world is going to give us a lot more better news over the next week to be talking to you about. But you know what? We'll see how it goes. We'll see how it goes.